What's up, everyone? Don't forget that the stock market will be closed tomorrow for the Juneteenth holiday. So in tomorrow's video, we will cover some of the best stocks to watch for this week. But in today's video, we're going to cover some really interesting statistics that show you what historically happens during these crazy market times, just like we're in now. And this data can be extremely beneficial not only for navigating this wild market, but it can also be extremely beneficial for when stocks pop back up, and you'll see why in just a couple seconds. So guys, we have a great video today. Make sure to stick with me to the end. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments down below, but we're going to get right into it. So I came across an article from Compound Advisors, and basically this article shows how stocks react in different market sentiments. We can see in March 2020, just 1% of stocks in the entire S&P 500 closed above their 50-day moving average. This is one of the most oversold readings in history. If we scroll down, we can see an awesome chart showing how the stock market and, of course, the percentage of stocks above their 50-day moving average just plummeted. A lot of people are wondering, all right, yeah, obviously, but what does this mean for the market? If we continue to scroll down, we can see that historically, when we see these giant drops and these giant oversold readings, we normally see above average returns in the future. If we continue to zoom in, we can see that this first row right here indicates how the stock market tends to perform when we are oversold or when a bunch of stocks are below their 50-day moving average. And we can see the average stock performance in the second row. But in the third row, we see the difference of how stocks perform when they're oversold versus on average. And historically speaking, when stocks are oversold, in the future, they tend to do a lot better than average. So that's awesome to see. And I guess you can say, all right, well, obviously, because stocks, fell so much. But I also want to highlight how in 2020, just 1% of the stocks in the entire S&P 500 closed above their 50-day moving average. And of course, we saw a giant pop up after that. Today, only 2% of stocks in the S&P 500 are above their 50-day moving average. That is a very big drop, and it's a lot of stocks are oversold. There's no other way to say it. And just like we just said a couple minutes ago, normally during these times, the stock market tends to explode back up. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that while historically the data shows that when stocks are oversold, they tend to pop back up a lot better than average, it is important to understand that every crash is different. One notable thing in 2020 was how the Fed just pumped trillions of dollars into the economy and the market, where this time it looks like they won't be able to do that. But, there have been many other instances throughout history, like in 2008, for example, and many other instances where, just the crash was different. Every single crash is different, and that's one of the most important things to understand. Every single crash, every single correction is unique. Keep that in mind. But what I thought was very interesting in this article is how not only do stocks tend to perform better when they are oversold, but they also tend to perform with above average returns when they are overbought too. We can see 2.5 months after the COVID crash, 96% of stocks in the S&P 500 closed above their 50-day moving average, which was the highest reading ever recorded. Okay? That is crazy. And you're probably wondering, well, if stocks tend to bounce up when they're oversold, maybe they tend to bounce down when they're overbought. But that's not true. When stocks are overbought, they tend to continue rising higher, and more so than average. So check this out. We can see that on average, like we already talked about a couple minutes ago, we can see in the second row how stocks perform on average. And the top row shows how stocks perform when they are already overbought. And you can see that they tend to perform with above average returns even when they're overbought. And this is just people being greedy and just driving stocks higher and higher and higher, where when we see stocks getting destroyed and they're very oversold, you see people buying the dip and all sorts of that stuff. But I thought it was very interesting, and how this article highlighted that stocks not only tend to perform with higher than average returns when they're low and oversold, they also tend to have those same returns when they are overbought. So I thought that was very, very interesting. One very, very important thing to know is that every single crash, every single oversold event, every single overbought event is unique. And while the data leads us to believe that even though the market is very oversold right now, there's nothing stopping it from getting even more oversold. So keep that in mind. But overall, Compound Advisors did an amazing job with this article. I'm a huge fan of their site, and I want to give them a giant shout out because they provide some awesome information. So I hope you guys learned something from this video. For tomorrow's video, we will have all the plays to watch for this week. But besides that, have a great rest of your day.